Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us.
My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois.
I know all of that, Mama.
Then know this. I am alive because of the blood of a people who never scraped or begged or apologized for what they were. They asked only one thing of this world: to be allowed to be. And I learned through the blood of this people that black isn't beautiful. It isn't ugly. It isn't kinky hair. It isn't straight hair. Black is just black. It broke my heart when you changed your name. I gave you my grandmother's name, a woman who bore 9 children and educated them all. Who held off 6 white men with a shotgun when they tried to drag one of her sons off to jail for not knowing his place. And you had to reach into an African dictionary to find a name that would make you proud.
It comes as a great shock, around the age of 5 or 6 or 7, to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you.
On the other hand, we are the only true inheritors of the place called America.
That's right. That's right. It belongs to us.
Because we are still outside of it.
It belongs to us, and there's nobody can do anything about that.
And we will get it. If we continue to move. I think it's a guilt.
In ways that one can't quite see yet. We already have it. That's one of the reasons for the panic.
We have to effect it.
Yes.
And we have to know it, and we have to make sure that everybody else...
We have to change it.
Our destiny is tied up in the destiny of America. Before the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth, we were here. Before Jefferson etched across the pages of history the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here. Before the beautiful words of the Star-Spangled Banner were written, we were here.
Mr. Muhammad teaches us that Negro is a term that was applied to us during slavery by the slave master. And right today, it's a term that is used only to point out the descendant of slaves. It's never used for black people, period. Africans can come to this country. They aren't called Negroes. And if they are called Negroes, they resent it. So if Negro meant black, as we've been taught, it would be a term that would be applicable to or applicable to everyone. But he says that it is something that means a slave, or something it means something that has been left out of society, politically, economically, educationally, and otherwise.
You don't think of it as an anthropological term?
Definitely. It's not an anthropological term. It's a slave term. And it was a term that was invented in America and was used by the slave makers, slave traders, and slave masters, and attached to the property or the chattel or merchandise that our people represented in that particular day.
And by the way, we're not black. How about that? We're not black. We're Indian. Yeah. We're Native American. Yeah. How many of y'all grandmothers got Indian in your family?
Yeah, I'm first. Period. I'm Indian.
Wait a second, but what happened to the Indians? We black. Show me black on the planet. Why you stop recording?
He knows the fucking shit.
Why you sound crazy? Nah, because you think I sound crazy.
No, you don't sound legit. You're talking true. You're talking true.
We're not black. Race was made up.
You're talking true.
Race was made up.
Yeah, with the brown eyes.
Show me black on the planet. Show me black. Everybody else, they European, they Australian, they Chinese, they Japanese. Show me black on the planet. We marginalized as entertainers.
Crazy because he's black.
Nick, what you care about crazy?
Hello. That last part will never not be funny. It's crazy because he's black. Y'all know that's Scotty, right? From Betty's. Oh my God. So y'all come on in. Happy Educational Friday. We are here. Shout out to everybody in the building. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we are discussing the Atlanta race riot. And I'm trying to go through a lot of these things that we were taught and even some that we weren't taught, because we all know about Tulsa. We all know about the whole thing with Lake Lanier and all that stuff. But it was so much stuff happening all across America during this quote unquote great migration and all that stuff, which was really a mask for a name for basically what they was doing, running us off our lands and unaliving us. But either way, it was so much stuff going on, and we are talking about reparations, right? So when we speak about reparations, I find that we typically only go to slavery. And I think that's the biggest mistake we can do, because it's so much stuff in recent history, even today, that we can go after this government about. And I think one of those things are land. So I call this Educational Friday segment, when I speak about us being pushed from different places in America, I call that reparations in the form of land. So if you're wondering, if you've seen that in the title, why it's there, it's because this government owes us everything. It literally owes us money. A check isn't even enough. So we got to come and attack this thing at every single angle we can. And I feel like the land is another angle we need to be taking, okay? And it's so obvious. They even taught us about some of the stuff thinking we wouldn't be conscious enough, or at least awake enough to understand what they really was telling us, which was a bit of their truth. But no, it don't matter. We're here now. We're figuring it out. And I'm going to help you guys so that we can come together and figure out how we can get back the land, because it does belong to us, FBA, Black Americans, Indigenous, Aboriginal, whatever people, ADOS, whatever people you want to identify us African American as today on the land. So I need you guys to get the likes up on the video, and we're going to jump right on into it. So I didn't know a lot about this Atlanta race riot. And it wasn't really a race riot. It was a race massacre, because as you know, just like Tulsa, just like Lake Lanier, just like all these other places, what's the catalyst for all these huge race riots? Some clear woman that was accosted and or allegedly raped by some Negro, some random Negro that nobody knows, and some clear woman. That's the catalyst for all of these quote unquote race riots and things of that nature. And we need to be looking into that, because first of all, what we know is it's made up. There's no way that all these black men was just running around chasing and attacking all these white women, causing whole towns to get burned down. None of that even makes sense. It was a reason for them to come in and do what they were doing. Now, the reason that this is important is because we don't understand how wealth and our economic freedom was slowly siphoned away from us. It was taken away from us politically. It was taken away from us economically. It was taken away from us spiritually. It was taken away from us in every facet you can name. And I want to kind of cover all of those things, because slavery was only one portion and a small portion of our history. We got to start looking into everything. Thank you, Peachy. Thank you. Shout out to everybody in the building. You guys like the video. But anyway, I'm bringing this to you because this is 1906. Some of us have grandparents and some great grandparents who either remember this time or was there. There's a lot of reparations that need to go around, and we need to be prepared for a lot of things that's been taking place with us. Even today, even with the way they're moving poor black people into these small areas of town, even that is unconstitutional. It's just that we don't understand what's happening and why it is happening. But it's small ways, like I told you, little bitty, incy, pincy, teeny ways to siphon the wealth away from us and then reprogram us to think that we're from Africa. Because you got to keep in mind, this is the early 1900s. At this time, Black Americans in America don't have a concept of coming from Africa. And I know some people are going to say, but that's not true because you had the AME church, or that's not true because you had this and you had that. That's the same way, or the same reason why in Mobile, Alabama, there's a quote unquote Africa town or something like that. But when you speak to the locals, they'll tell you about Africa town. But when you ask them about what they know as far as their genealogy and their lineage, Africa never comes up. Same thing about the Geechee. If you hear about people say, oh, there's an Africa town in South Carolina where the Geechee's at, that's always to throw you off the trail of what's happening. Even though I know Geechee people, none of them mention Africa. But yet and still, somebody 100 years later is going to turn back and say, no, they had to be Africans. Look, there was a sign. These are all like psyops. These are all ways to confuse you. You know what I'm saying? It's just all ways to confuse you. K Carter TV says, no, my people are from Mobile, Alabama, and they told me a little about Africa Town. They said the slave ship came in there. I'm glad you brought that up, because I run into the same thing in New Orleans. Some people from New Orleans will tell you that the reason we do masking Indians is because we're paying homage or homage to the quote unquote Native American, and that's not true. That happens when people repeat false history. Okay. And it even happens to the people there sometimes. Now, in New Orleans, you'll find some people who know, no, we're not paying homage to no Native Americans. This is my indigenous heritage. But you also have Indians who will tell you, well, no, it is because we're paying homage. And the only difference is one is educated through a system and the other is educated through their family. And sometimes, even inside of families, we kind of mix that education through a system inside of it. So it's not surprising that some people will say, well, I have family from Mobile and they do talk about Africa Town. Well, of course, when you went to kindergarten, if they taught you about Africa Town, by the time you're 30, 40, or 50, guess what you're going to believe? This is Africa Town. Does that make sense? It's just about where you're getting the education from. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, K Carter TV, because this needed to be talked about. Now, but the fact of the matter is the Geechee are not Africans. The Geechee don't have nothing to do with Africa. They don't. Mobile ain't got nothing to do with Africa. And we've already debunked the Clotilda. It never set sail, nor did it ever reach Mobile, Alabama. We've already debunked that. We've already debunked that. Matter of fact, not just me. Everybody has debunked the Clotilda. I mean, it's a whole slave ship buried in 10 or 11 feet of water that nobody can go see or go get. Wake up. All right, let's get into the Atlanta race massacre, because that's what it was. It wasn't a riot. It was a race massacre. And what you're going to find is behind when you peel back the layers of, oh, it happened because it was some white woman that was accosted. Da, 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 da. Listen, once you peel back the layers, you're going to realize it's about economics. It's about money. It's about land. And that's what this whole thing is really about. Now, let's get into the Atlanta race massacre. All right. So it goes on. It says, and this is from Digital Exhibits auction at edu.edu or whatever. I can't remember, whatever. All right, it says, in September 1906, a riot broke out in Atlanta in response to unfolding allegations published in the city's newspaper that a group of black men had been assaulting white women. Now, let's be clear. This is coming off the heels of Birth of a Nation. Remember, Birth of a Nation came out in the late 1800s. That is a movie. It's a movie that introduced the Ku Klux Klan to the masses of clear America, right? And the premise of this movie is there's this black man, even though it's actually a white man in blackface at the time, but there's this black man going around accosting and raping all these lily white women. And so now the Ku Klux Klan has to come in and be the savior for all the lily white women against the black men, right? Now, this is a movie. We know that people take movies literally. Like they go to a movie, they see it, and then they go home and they internalize it, and they really go out and think that this is real. Well, what happened was right after they put that movie out for the clears, here comes the newspaper. Remember, this is a system. This is systematic racism. That means it's not coming from one angle. It's coming from every which way but loose. Okay? Now, hold on. Put a pin in that right quick. Cherry Lundell, you must be new. Thank you. Welcome to the channel. Geechee are not from anywhere in West Africa. That has never been proven. I get it. It's been repeated. And even Africans tend to repeat that, thinking that it's true. The Geechee have no direct ties to Africa at all. I don't care what a DNA test says. When I talk about genealogy, there's nobody on the coast of anywhere of South and North Carolina that can go anywhere in Africa and point to a person and say, I am genetically tied to that person. So that is a lie. The Geechee have zero attachment to West Africa. The only attachment the Geechee have to West Africa is that placard they put in the middle of the town down there and what they put in the books. That's it. There's no attachment to West Africa, but you notice the attachment always try to come from West Africa. This is the place that's supposed to be the motherland. This is supposed to be a motherland that this is supposed to be the origin of everything. Yet and still, everything in America, they come put a West African tag on it. Are you guys catching this? If they are the motherland, then why are they putting their names on all of our stuff? And why can't we find our stuff in the quote unquote motherland? It's all a hoax. It's all a lie. It's all a lie. Let me get Carly on here. You want to know why you can't find any of us, any remnants of this greatness over there in quote unquote West Africa? Because it was all a lie.
It was all a lie. Guys, it was all a lie. She lied.
Like I said, other than someone spitting in a tube and some weird scientist sending them some wacky results, telling them that they have X amount of percentage from a hablo group of West Africa, there's absolutely zero West African descent in Geechee or Gullah Geechee people. Period, point blank. Until somebody from South Africa can go and point to a person and show me genealogical bloodline, it doesn't exist. We got to wake up. Gone are the days where we living in Wakanda. Ain't no more Wakanda. Wakanda is over. It doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it exists right here. Not in West Africa where everybody's fleeing to come over here. That makes absolutely no sense. It makes absolutely no common sense. If Wakanda is in Africa, why are y'all coming over here? You get it? So let's put that to bed. Ain't no African in the Gullah or the Geechee. And I said what I said. Now let's move on. Back to the race riots in Atlanta, okay? Lord have mercy. It's a lot. Girl. But you know what? That had to happen. That had to happen. That question had to pop up because it has to be made clear. The only ties that anybody can tie to that's Geechee to Africa is some freaking weird DNA test or them clear people's history. Not people, not oral history, not none of that. Not none of that. And I know a lot of Geechee. I know a lot of Geechee people. I live in Georgia. I run across a lot of Gullah and a lot of Gullah Geechee and I run across everybody. Remember, I am an Indian. Somehow we lock and we know. Okay. I'm just saying. You know, I'm just saying I done ran across a lot of them. And I done been to Charleston, done been out there, hung out there, been around the people, great cooks, girl, I done been everywhere, especially on this South. In the South, ain't a place I ain't touched. Or at least a state. I ain't gonna say a place. But anyway, back to the Atlanta race riot. So anyway, they're going to tell you guys for the Atlanta race riot that it's about a woman. It's never about a woman. It's about moving us off our land and stripping us of our wealth, okay? Now, mind you, systematically, because this is a systematic racist organization or system that we're dealing with, racism comes from all different angles. So mind you, you got the birth of a nation happening in the late 1800s, right? You got the birth of a nation happening in the late 1800s. That movie influences white people to think that black men just want to go around raping white women, right? So then boom, here comes the newspaper to put out some information saying that some clear woman from somewhere was accosted by some mysterious Negro. And now here comes the race riots. That's what they do. They put the propaganda in your head and then activate it like a damn detonator or something like that. Okay? It goes on to say, thousands of whites roam the streets, damaging black businesses, assaulting and severely beating African Americans. It is estimated that 25 to 40 African Americans were killed. Now, mind you, they tell us in 2025 that when they went out there rioting, which it wasn't really us, but well, it was some of us, I ain't gonna lie. But when they tell us when we riot, it's wrong. But when they riot for a purpose. See, they gonna go out there and claim that they only tearing up the businesses because some clear woman was raped. That's not true. That's not true. Okay? It's purposely and strategically done. Strategically done to get you to basically to get you out your land. Make a reason, cause a confusion or disturbance, and then go get that land. Okay? Go get that land. That's what the government is doing. That's why they put that movie out there so that they can strategically do all these cities where black people are doing well, go in there and get that land. That's what this is all about. The wealth lies in the land. It don't lie in your pocketbook. We've seen the most richest people turn poor. Wealth has never lied in your pocketbook. It has always lied in the land. That's why nobody can for real own land today. That's why you can't truly own land today. Think about it. Even if I bought land and paid the land up cash and paid up all my taxes and never missed a tax thing, the government can still come and take it because the wealth is in the land. Okay? Don't forget that. All right, so it goes on to say the causes of the riot were more subtle and complex than the newspaper reports of violence. It says since emancipation, Atlanta had become a city where African Americans could achieve middle-class success. It says, although within the constraints of segregation, black men and women in Atlanta owned businesses, built stately homes, and educated their children and held membership in social clubs and charity groups. Now, I want to pause you right here. We've been talking about the poor whites here in the past few weeks. I told you guys about the poor whites. Let's paint the picture of what's happening. Slavery is over. Abe Lincoln, the war was won. Abe done freed the slaves. We're in emancipation. Under emancipation, for some odd reason, these black slaves are doing exceptionally well. Now, remember, we are talking about during this time, what's also happening? The floodgates of Ellis Island are opening, right? Remember, I also told you that as this Ellis Island floodgate are opening, these are poor whites. The worst of, not my words, the KKK said it. I didn't say it. But these are the lowest of the lowest clears that you can have. So much so that the clears that were already here in America delineated from the clears that came off the boat in Ellis Island. Listen, I'm trying to give you the tea of what happened, girl. So these are poor, disease-ridden clears coming through the ports of New York. You know, with the lady with the thing in her hand, it ain't nothing but a light post. So the clears are coming in, and they need to disperse these clears in the South. Because remember, what also was happening or just happened right before then? What else just happened? America acquired the what? Louisiana Purchase. And in the Louisiana Purchase is what we now know is a lot of the what? Deep South, which was predominantly, if not all, black. All black. That's why when it came to politics in the 1700s, we represented in the South all black because there was nobody else there to be represented except us. Now, history books will tell you that we somehow, some way were so amazing that we raised all this money after being poor slaves, and then we were great. But the fact of the matter is we were never all poor and we were never all slaves. As a matter of fact, most of us were not. I'm going to save that for another day because I don't want to trigger nobody. Okay? Now, Back to where we are going. So you got the poor clears coming in and black people are thriving. The powers that be need these clears to go different places in the South. Basically, it's like setting up camp. We need to set up clears in all these different places in the South so that we can gain control, both politically, economically, socially, period. So they sending these poor clears to the South, but they're promising them land. Remember, Martin Luther King said that. I'm going to play a little piece of what Martin Luther King, Mike going to tell you what they did when they let the white folks in. Listen, this is all adding up. I'm going to go back. So when we get to Martin, we know where we're at. This is 1906, Atlanta. Black people are doing phenomenally well. Mind you, this is still under Jim Crow, aka segregation. Ellis Island just opened the floodgates in the late 1800s and it's clears coming in by the boatloads. They're poor though. They are poor whites. The government wants to extract the wealth from the black people who already have the wealth. So what do? Take those poor whites, give them land that they stole from black people and give them a status that puts them higher than the blacks that are there. What is that status? Whites. And what is our status? Black. Does that make sense? So now you got poor whites who ain't got a pot to piss in nor a window to throw it out of, this is poor whites, and you got exceptional Negroes. But the problem is, it don't matter how exceptional these Negroes are, because the whites, even though they're poor, they have the status. You get it? So now the poor whites are coming in, and people will say, well, if they poor, how did they get all this stuff? Let's let Martin tell us. Mike is going to get on here and tell us how those white people in this time, this is all before and during this 1906 race riot. Let Mike tell you how they got that land and that money. Check it out.
They built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
So to sum up what Mike was saying, aka Martin Luther King, what he was saying was they bought these poor white people in and gave them our land. Then they sent them to land grant colleges, meaning free school, to learn how to tend to the land. Then he talked about them getting county agents, government county agents, to teach them to mechanize their farms, meaning instead of doing stuff by hand, go get the cotton gin, you see what I'm saying? So they basically gave them an economic floor to put them in a status and keep them in a status above you. But remember, these are still poor, disease-ridden whites. And their descendants are the ones you see a lot of today. Okay? So now, if I'm a poor white and I'm coming in and the government gonna give me free land to oppress a people, I'm not gonna hold you. If I'm cut from that cloth, sign me up. And that's what the poor clears did. So all this time, the internet, the media has been putting these clears on this pedestal as if we want to be like them, and they were nothing but poor, disease-ridden clears. We have always had a status higher than them. It's just this government gave them a status higher than us. Yeah, your average clear that you're walking across, it would have been, not my words, according to the clears who was here, the founding father clears. They said, I didn't say it, but most of the clears you hear, walking here now, those people said that they were bottom of the barrel, disease ridden and not worthy. I didn't say it. I look at everybody different. When you know different, you look at people way different. I'm telling you, your eyes just, it hit different. Okay? Now, yep, basically. And not my words, not our words. That's what the KKK said. We didn't say it. The KKK said it. Okay? I don't know. Do I still have that article up? I don't think I still got that article up. But for real, I didn't say it. The KKK said it. I don't think I got that article up no more. Nope. Y'all lucky. I had it up. All right, let's move on. So, because I want to show you guys a video. So then it goes on to say, now mind you, they're running through the town, destroying all the people's businesses in the homes, because that's what this is all about. It says, although within the constraints of segregation, Black men and women in Atlanta owned businesses, built stately homes, educated their children, and held membership in social clubs and charity groups. Black wage workers saw their neighbors achieve higher status, and they too expected improvements in their conditions. White anger rose in reaction to African American progress and the growing Black family class, increasing racial tension in the city. I want to rephrase that to the truth. That's not what happened. White people were not mad at our growing economy. White people were mad because we had it and they didn't. And the government allowed them to come in, rape, pillage, and kill anybody they wanted if they can take the wealth from us. That's the God's honest truth. If you want it plain and dry, that's plain and dry. We weren't growing anything. What we had is what we had. We weren't just bonded slaves in no chains like Kunta Kinte. Get that shit out of your head. The fact of the matter are, these poor white people came in and saw niggas doing well, and the government said, I'll turn my head if you go in and take all that shit from them niggas. And there you go. But history gonna tell you, oh, it's just that they were jealous of the growing. We weren't growing shit. We were. Just like today, there's a large group of Black Americans who are. You don't have to grow. We are. Okay? Now, moving on, it goes on to say, white anger rose in white anger rose in reaction to African American progress and the growing Black middle class, increasing racial tension in the city. It goes on to say, the gubernatorial election of 1906 also contributed to racial tension. Both the candidates for the Democratic nomination, M. Hoke Smith and Clark Howell, ran campaigns painting Black Atlantans in a negative light, stirring up fear among whites that their way of life was threatened by the Black vote. Pause. So basically, I'm going to give you the real again. Let me tell you what happened. So what happened was these niggas was running politically, because in the South, it was more of us than them. We were definitely running the game politically. And they still are systematically attacking us in every which way they can. We got the movie, and now we also have these random riots. So then we got newspaper happening, and now they're going to add a whole other element to this. And this element would be that they're going to say, oh, the Black vote is a threat to your way of life. What way of life? They came with nothing. Do you understand how many poor whites was living in the South when they came? Mind you, all of them didn't get this money in this land. Some of them came with nothing. So again, we got to start being able to pick this crap apart, because it's always a way to make us look like the underdog in the story. But the fact of the matter is, we've never been the underdog. Never. And they're trying to say that their way of life was threatened by the Black vote. The way of life that they wanted was threatened by the Black vote. That's why they had to politically get us up out of there. Because I'm telling you, white people do not fear that we will put them in slavery. They know we're not even cut from that type of cloth as a collective. White people fear of going back to the status they were in before we came here. And I'm sorry, before they came here. White people fear of going back to the Slavic status that they came from. That's all. If they don't think that we're going to do what do you call it? They don't think we're going to retaliate and go burn down houses. They know we ain't like that. They study us. They fear going back to the what's real. Them on the bottom and us on the top. They ain't but 6,000 years old. There's no way. Goes on to say, this kind of explosive violence in the 1906 race riot called the terms to the Atlanta Compromise into question, and the philosophy of activists like W.E.B. Du Bois, who envisioned equal rights, grew in popularity. Now, let me tell you something too. Remember, this is systematic. You want to have a new leader come in. When do you put a new leader in? During the time of chaos. So now they're saying this is around the time they introducing us to Webb, W.E.B. Du Bois. Now we know he is a bootlicking, who was basically on here thinking that only 10% should rule the 90% of Black America. And he felt like him being part of the talented 10th, that he should choose other 10% or other Black people to be a part of that and keep us all at the bottom. W.E.B. Du Bois did way more harm for Black America than good. If America tell you they were great, look into them. So they introducing W.E.B., another, in my opinion, alleged government agent, in my opinion. So they introducing him. And you got to also keep in mind what's also going on around this time. Meatball. Oh, yeah. Meatball trying to get niggas to go to Africa on that scam ship he had. So it's a lot popping. It's a lot popping off during this time. It's a lot popping off during this time. Niggas is torn every which way but loose. Now, I want to show you guys. Hold on. Before we go to that, I want to make sure I got, because I want to show y'all this video that I have. And you got to be mindful and careful of articles you read, because like I said, if you can't read through the lies, you're gonna get caught up. You're definitely gonna get caught up. Let's go over here. Now, here's the background of what was going on in Atlanta prior to the race riots. Peep this. By the 1880s, Atlanta had become the hub of the regional economy, and the city's overall population soared from 89,000 in 1900 to 150,000 in 1910. The Black population was approximately 9,000 in 1880 and 35,000 by 1900s. Don't trust these numbers. But look. Don't matter. Listen. Remember Kendrick Lamar put in that verse, the last verse on They Not Like Us, when he said, once upon a time, all of us was in chains. Homie still doubled down, calling us some slaves. Atlanta was the Mecca, building railroads and trains. Bear with me for a second. I'm going to put y'all on game. And then he starts to talk about how the settlers, which are clear people and people who are foreigners, because it's not always clear people, but the settlers were coming into town and using the town folk, that's the Black people, to make them richer. Remember, he's trying to compare Drake to a settler and Black people in Atlanta to whatever. But I'm saying all this to say Atlanta has always been a Black Mecca. The railroad hub started in Atlanta, and we all know the railroad come from the Black Americans who were already here. Clear people did not start a railroad, nor did they have any concept of it. Why do you think the Underground Railroad, hello? It wasn't physically always underground. So it had multi-meanings. Okay, so Atlanta was lit, and it was mostly predominantly Black. They're going to tell you they had 150,000 people, but only 35,000 was Black. That is a lie. It is not geometry. It's geographically impossible. It's historically impossible. They didn't have enough white people in the South at the time to make it that uneven. That's a lie. It's a lie. Okay? So don't believe sometimes. You got to be able to pick through it. Now, it goes on to say, such growth put pressure on municipal service, increased job competition among Black and white workers. It says heightened class distinctions and led the city's white leadership to adopt restrictions intended to control the daily behavior of the growing working class with mixed success. I'm gonna give you the real tea on that. So this is what's going on, because the black people were more of the laborers and had more history here in America. We had more experience. So when these companies want to come about, or these businesses want to come about, who do you think they're going to hire? Do you think they'd rather stay race loyal and hire some clear man who don't know shit about nothing? Or would they rather hire some black dude, and I could definitely pay him less, and then he's going to produce more work? What was happening is they were hiring more blacks for jobs. And this wasn't just in Atlanta. This was all over America. Frederick Douglass spoke about it in his book. There was a riot on the barge where he was working. I forgot what kind of work he was doing. But there was a riot on the barge because the white people were mad that the black people were getting hired before them. And it had nothing to do with race. It's dollars and cents. We are the workers. So they hired us more. But history will tell you that it was just growing tension amongst the blacks and whites about some work tensions. No, they weren't getting hired. That's why they systematically put things in to say, we're not going to hire other people on the low, but still. All right. So it goes on to say, it says, such growth put pressure on municipal services, increased job competition among black and white workers, heightened class distinctions, and led the city's white leadership to adopt restrictions intended to control the daily behavior of the growing working class with mixed success. Such conditions caused concern among elite whites who feared the social intermingling of the races and led to an expansion of the Jim Crow segregation, particularly in the separation of white and black neighborhoods and separate seating areas for public transportation. So now, according to this article, it's saying that the people saw that the black and white people were mingling and was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. We need to separate them. Cap. Now, don't get me wrong. There was an element of the pure white race. That's where you get the one drop rule from. So that was a thing. So I'm not going to act like it did. That wasn't what it was. What we have to understand is this stuff is multi-layered. It's not just one dimensional. If that's one reason why, we need to start peeling back the layers to see what was the other reasons why. And I'm going to tell you why. The segregation happened because it was already segregated. It was already what it was. White people, just like they do today, were trying to come and live amongst us. It was not the other way around. Mind you, these are poor whites. They don't have nothing. Why would we want to go and live amongst them? Think about this. They poor whites coming off a boat. Why are we running toward them? There's no reason why we would do that. It makes absolutely no sense. The reason why segregation happened, honestly, in my opinion, what I believe is so that it could be easier to take our wealth away and easier for them to organize. Same reason why they got all white towns I hear about today, that people want to say, oh, let them have their freedom. And then people be down there organizing, trying to figure out a way to defeat us and all types of other stuff. I believe segregation happened because it was already kind of happening naturally, but I believe it was also to set status. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know. But this whole thing of us ever being on a playing field in this time, collectively is just not true. Collectively is not true. So now we had Jim Crow, and then all this stuff happens. It says the emergence of a black elite in Atlanta also contribute to racial tensions in the city. I'm telling you, because we were doing well. During Reconstruction, 1867 to 76, black men gained the right to vote. Mind you, they had it before. Don't let this 1867 Reconstruction, they had regained the right to vote because black men had the right to vote in the 1700s. So I just wanted to add that in. So moving on, it goes on to say black men gained the right to vote, and as black men were more involved in the political realm, they began to establish businesses, create social networks, and build communities. As this black elite acquired wealth, education, and prestige, its members attempted to distance themselves from the black working class, especially from the black men who frequented the saloons on Atlanta's in Decatur Street. Them niggas was out there back then. Niggas. See how you see? Do y'all see how behavioral patterns never change? Them niggas was out there getting drunk. So basically what they saying is the talented, the uppity Negroes said they didn't want to be amongst the hood. Y'all know how it go. We do it today. To this day, I ain't gonna lie, I don't want to live in the hood. I don't. I shout out to the hood. I just don't want to live in it. So I guess I would be one of the uppity Negroes. Whatever. Moving on. Many whites, while uncomfortable with the advances of the black elite, also disapproved of these saloons, which were said to be decorated with depictions of nude women. Now, here is where they're trying to find a reason to be mad. These niggas is doing well, we doing bad. The people in the government told us we white and we have a higher status, yet and still, it doesn't look like it. Like, I'm white. You told me when I came off the boat that I could be white and they gonna be black. And I'm gonna have a higher status. But every time I look at them niggas, they eating better, they looking better, they got elite classes. Them niggas doing social clubs. Like, what the hell? What the hell? You told me when I got off the boat that if I brought my family down here, we gonna be white. How is these niggas doing so well and I'm not? I'm putting you in the mind of a white man. Now, this is all racial tension growing on the average white person, and the government or system is going to use this to fuel the separation and the extraction of the wealth. Okay? Now, look, Pete. Now, they're going to try to say it's because of the bar. It ain't got nothing to do with the bar, because that's what all the saloon is a bar. They trying to say it's too many niggas down there at the bar, and plus they got naked women painted on the wall. Well, don't go in. But that's a reason. That's all they need is a reason. Concerns over such establishment fueled prohibition campaigns in the city. Who did I tell you guys earlier on the morning Joes had the monopoly on the alcohol? Us. Do you want to know why we had the monopoly on the alcohol? We made it. It was our invention. And whatever we were trading through the Americas or whoever we were trading through for liquor, that's who we were trading through. But it came through us. And I told y'all earlier, everything that we have, they demonize it and then repackage it and sell it back to us. Same thing with the liquor. So now they need a reason to cut off our supply through money economically through the alcohol system, because that's an economic system. Listen, prohibition, it directly affected Black Americans economically who were in that system. When you cut, it's almost like Airbnb today. Let's say a whole bunch of Black Americans have Airbnbs in America. And let's say one day Trump just came down and said, you know what? No more Airbnbs. That would directly affect the collective of Black Americans because most of us have Airbnbs. It's the same thing with the liquor. When the government came and did the alcohol prohibition, it directly economically impacted Black America because that's one of the ways we made our money. This is all economics here. All right? So boom. It goes on to say, concerns over establishment fueled prohibition campaigns in the city, and many whites began to blame Black saloon goers for rising crime rates in the growing city, and particularly for threats of sexual violence against white women. This is all cap. The candidates for the 1906 governor's race played to the white fears of a Black upper class. They didn't play to the fears. It was already there. They just told you at the beginning of the article that there was elites. There was an elite class of Black Americans in Atlanta. They just said it in the article. There's no fear of an upper class Black American. It's already here. You get it? I hope this is making sense to you guys. So it goes on to say, It goes on to say, in the months leading up to August election, both Hoke Smith, the former publisher of the Atlanta Journal, and Clark Howell, the editor of the Atlanta Constitution, were in the position as gubernatorial candidates to influence public opinions through their newspapers. And you know they both ops. So now you got two newspapers going to tell you how to vote. Smith was the public support for former populist Thomas E. Watson, inflamed racial tensions in Atlanta by insisting that Black disenfranchisement was necessary to ensure that Blacks were kept in their place, that is, in a position inferior to that of whites. Pause. Now we got two candidates. Hoke Smith, let's get him up here. Now, these, mind you, it's like almost like right now we only have Google. Let's say we only had one avenue to get our news from, and it's a newspaper. And let's say we only have two sources to get all the news that we have. Everything that we will ever know come from these two sources. These people were picked, chosen to feed the people the way that they wanted them to feed them, right? So this dude, Hoke Smith, he is supporting a candidate that believes that Black Americans need to be kept in their place. Remind you, these are poor whites. Poor whites. So all the poor whites in that town or around that town, you don't think they voting? Yeah, we want that governor, because he's campaigning to put them at a higher status than the Blacks. Okay? Hoke Smith, that's this dude right here. And he looked like he might be a little mixed. But either way, it says, where was I at? Okay, since receiving the right to vote, Smith argued Blacks also had sought economic and social equity or equality. By disenfranchising Blacks, white could maintain the social order. Let me rephrase it. By disenfranchising Blacks, whites could gain, not regain, could gain the social order. Howell, on the other hand, claimed that the Democratic white primary and the poll tax were already sufficient in limiting Black voting. Instead, Howell emphasized that Smith was not the racial separatist he claimed to be, and he charged that Smith had in the past cooperated with Black political leaders and thus could not be relied upon to advance the cause of white supremacy. In addition to the political debates waged in the Journal and the Constitution, other newspapers, especially the Atlanta Georgian and the Atlanta News, carry stories throughout the year about alleged assault on white women by Black men. The media provoked anger and hatred in its white readers with stories, editorials, and cartoons warning of rising crime, the danger to white women of rape by Black men, the disreputable saloons that encourage drunkenness and licentious behavior in brutish men, and the desire of uppity Blacks to achieve equality with whites. These sensationalist stories heightened white paranoia to the breaking point by the late September when mob violence erupted. Right now, we're going to get into the massacre, but let me say this. You have been lied to. To say that you came from nothing is to mentally keep you there. That's the whole point of this. It's all a mental mind trick. That's what this is all about. If you tell a man that he's a slave and he believes that he is a slave, then guess what he will be? A slave. So if you tell all these Negroes that they African slaves and they never had nothing, only history we got is slavery, then guess what? Guess what the mentality of the people will be? Slaves. Now, I'm not saying that slavery didn't happen. It absolutely did happen. But it is one of the things that they use to mentally manipulate us and keep us encaged. Because if we, definitely a destiny swap, Virgo. And the reason I'm saying that is because they told us we came off the boat, but we know for a fact they came off the boat. It's all about what you believe. All of this. It sounds weird. It sounds like, girl, you talking crazy. And I get it. Because when I say it out loud, it does sound crazy. If I was on the other end of the computer, I'd be like, all right, girl, now you tripping. But it really is just that simple. I wish I could find a way to explain it to you more. Maybe I can on another live. But it really is Just that simple. Like I said earlier the other day about the lyrics from Luther Vandross and his Make Me a Believer song. It says Superman can fly high way in the sky. Why? Simply because we believe he can. That's it. Then he says, so what we choose to believe can always work out fine. It's all in the mind. That's some real shit. I'm telling you. I don't care what nobody say. That is some real spill. It's if they tell you you're a slave, you will believe you are a slave and you will be a slave. Okay? Now, I want to show you guys a video from the Atlanta race riot. Now, take this shit with a grain of salt because you know how it be when you on here trying to get the truth from the clears and the quote unquote black looking people. Okay, we all know that the system is rigged, the game is rigged, and they'll get on here and say anything, child. Okay, but we got to be able to read between the lines. It doesn't make sense to completely get out of the history. We got to listen to the history because we got to be able to decipher the truth from the lies. But even still, we got, like I said, we got to be able to know what happened and figure out the truth from the lies. I'm gonna just leave it there. Y'all like the video if you haven't already. Check this out.
Many of you all know the Tulsa Race Massacre that took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921.
But did you know that in the summer of 1906, the Atlanta Race Massacre took its unfortunate ranking among the countless number of other horrific massacres in U.S. history?
In this episode, we will discuss the Atlanta Race Massacre of 1906 and how the social, political, and cultural implications are in black and white, and sets Atlanta up to be a major battleground to where black Atlantans produce resistance and resiliency in the face of white terror.
As a historian, author, and professor, I've witnessed the timeless power of history, the way we understand the people, places, and events of the past shape our future. So join me as we dare to look deeply and differently at the world behind and before us. You never know what you'll find while redefining history. Many Atlantans don't know about the Atlanta Race Massacre, formerly known as the Atlanta Race Riot. Yet they unknowingly engage in the sacred spaces where it all unfolded. On September 22nd, 1906, a violent rampage erupted in the Five Points area of downtown Atlanta. On that day, a riotous mob of white men gathered to destroy black-owned businesses and brutally attack any person of color in sight. The violence occurred over a string of 4 days as the mob dispersed throughout downtown and surrounding areas. If you're like me, you may be wondering, why did all of this violence happen? What was the social climate of Atlanta in 1906? And what were some of the political influences of that time?
Now, I'm not going to hold you. I didn't even watch this documentary, but I'm gonna tell you, I understand because I've taken almost every history course you can take in college. I promise. I am a huge history buff. I love it. But either way, I've learned from what I've learned in school versus what I learned on my own. Like I said, they give you about 25% truth and wrapping in 75% lie. So they make the core of it true, but then they wrap all of the supporting details that make that true. They wrap that in lies. So you might hear stuff in this documentary because I understand how they write their history. I understand how the powers that be writes history. They like to write it that makes it favorable to them, but also simultaneously make it derogatory for us. So when you hear this history, you'll always hear Black Americans in a subservient state, or either trying to rise or trying to grow, or we were growing. It's not, we are never doing well. It's always we were going to do well, or we were trying to do well. And then the white people were afraid that we would succeed. And it's always that. That is a psychological mind trick. If you start to internalize that every time you try to do something, they stopped it, guess what you physically won't do? Try. That's all a psychological mind trick. If they tell you you've always tried and you never succeeded, you probably won't try again. But it's bigger than that. It keeps you in the subservient state of mind of a slave because you understand that you've never achieved, you've never succeeded. Where are the stories where you succeeded? Now they'll throw us one or two breadcrumbs and say, "Oh yeah, y'all had Tulsa. Give them Tulsa." You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, y'all had Rosewood. Give them Rosewood. Or give them Mountain Bayou. They give us onesie twosies just because it would be too egregious if they did it. Then it would be too much of a bold-faced lie. But it's not enough to change the mentality of the people because still, if they look around at their conditions, which it don't, mind you, they don't remember how they got there. But if they look around at their conditions and they study this history, it makes sense. Okay, no wonder I'm pouring in the ghetto. According to this history, I've always been pouring in the ghetto. You see what I'm saying? Psychological mind tricks. Keep that in mind when you're reading, learning, hearing, writing. I don't care, whatever it is. It's always a way to keep you on the bottom in your mind.
To find out more, I decided to take a trip to the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. I'm meeting up with Dr. Clarissa Myrick Harris to review a few archival materials from that time period.
I am on a quest and a journey to find as much as I possibly can from the ground up on the Atlanta Race Massacre. Can you tell me some things about what we have here? You ladies have assembled real primary sources that discuss the Atlanta Race Massacre, but can you tell me what's going on?
In 1906, September 22nd, 1906 to be exact, the city exploded when a mob of thousands of white, primarily men, but I believe there were some women in there too, began to attack Black citizens and Black businesses and Black residential areas. It started in the Central Business District, and that's where the Black and white businesses were located and in competition. And so it started there. It was September 22nd, that Saturday, the 23rd, the Sunday, the 24th, that Monday, and September 25th, that fourth day. And that was the day that it was centered primarily in Brownsville. Okay, where there was really an armed confrontation. They duked it out. They battled it out. The Black, that South Side. The documentation says that there were 25 African Americans killed and maybe 2 whites. We know the numbers were greater, especially when it came to the Black victims of this assault.
Let me say this too. I saw that her title is Study of Africana Studies. Red flag. Africana ain't got shit to do with America or American history, okay? So I saw her title and I already knew she was flawed when I turned the documentary on, but I already knew that what she knows is flawed. Now, she's going to say that 25 Blacks died and 2 whites died. Remember, we're always supposed to be put in this inferior place in these stories. In these stories, we are always in inferior place. So it's going to always be way more of us dying than them. Then she turns around and was like, but we all know it was a way greater number than that. It's all a way to keep you psychologically enslaved. Okay. Now, someone who is taking African studies, African American studies, Africana studies, and all that crap, I understand that she might think that she knows what she knows, but she's just heavily indoctrinated. I was too. So I know exactly what that means. She's heavily indoctrinated and she believes what she's saying because she's been indoctrinated to do so.
Catalyst for this was really a result of media, a result of articles that were in newspapers in the city during this time frame. They published articles that essentially categorized all Black people as criminals. And so they're saying that white safety and white...
And let me say this too, really quickly. Reparations, that Atlanta newspaper, let me tell you something about white businesses. I need you guys to open your ears. They don't die, they multiply, okay? They just evolve into something else. So the Atlanta newspaper put out defamatory things about Black Americans that the government is even admitting were not true. So who owned the newspaper at the time, and what did that newspaper company develop into? Who are the families who were affected by the 1906 riot? Because you can go to those companies, because I'm pretty positive that's somebody of money today, Okay, y'all can go to these folks or to the city at the very least and say, you owe me reparations. My family's barbershop was torn down in 1906 in the race riots. Or my family's, you get it? This is why genealogy is so important. If you don't know who your third great grandmother was, you don't know if she was in the 1906 race riot. You don't know if she was over there by the mound builders. You don't know if she was, you know what I'm saying? You just don't know. So genealogy is very important.
Power was in jeopardy by Black citizens. This is actually from the Atlanta Constitution, 1951. And so you'll notice that they say possibly Atlanta's most tragic period was the 4 bitter days in September 1906, when hatred and death rode rampant through the normally quiet, peace-loving city. Following a series of attacks on white women by Negroes, tension had grown to an extremely dangerous point. So they are validating this, and there were attacks on white women by Black men. Wow. So in telling the story, they're perpetuating a lie about what really occurred. This was a period of the gubernatorial elections, the campaigns. And so the papers were in competition, really. The papers were actually the tools of the two candidates for the Democratic nomination for governor. The Atlanta Constitution was the paper that was affiliated with Clark Howell, okay, one of the two gubernatorial candidates, Democratic.
Oh, one more thing, just to give y'all a little bit of history on the politics during this time. The reason why both these candidates are white in 1906, a lot of y'all don't know this, because in the South, we dominated politics because it was more of us. They used I'm gonna just say it how it is. They use mixed breed Black people who are mixed Black and white. They use them as psyops to come in, befriend the Black community, get us on their side, and then they was underhand and backdooring us in the back. And not just mixed race people, other Black people as well. It was all about spies. It was all about agents. So if you see two white people running, it's because by this time, now they have full political power. And now, they willing to burn down the town to contain that and remain keeping that power. Does that make sense? So, but prior to that, it was all Black people all up and through the South. Okay?
Affiliated with Clark Howell, okay, one of the two gubernatorial candidates, Democratic gubernatorial candidates. The Atlanta Journal was affiliated with Hoke Smith. There was fear that Black male voters had too much power. And of course, Black men were in the majority in the Republican Party. About 75% of the Republican Party was comprised of Black men.
So this is Lincoln's Republican Party.
Exactly.
Right?
We were all Republicans. All of us who partook in politics, we are the Republican Party. We were the Republican Party. The racist whites were the Dixiecrats. That's what we call today the Democrats. So, of course, there were Black men who had the right to vote, voting Republican. That was the party of the Black people. I told you, we didn't switch to the Democrats until 1960s with Mike in the John F. K era and in the LBJ era. That's when we switched over to Democrats. When we decided to hold hands and sing together in the old Negro spiritual. All the way prior to that, we were Republicans. But all of this is strategically done. Okay?
Exactly. So now with that being said, so what you're articulating here is that this is organized from the top.
Yes.
I mean, if we have two gubernatorial candidates that are using some kind of demagoguery to really strike fear into white Atlanta, this is orchestrated at a very high level. Why do you both believe that this story is not told? Why is it not taught in our
school? And the white people were outnumbered. That's why they were afraid of the Black vote. They were outnumbered. Remember, they just came off the boat through Ellis Island. It ain't enough of them for their candidate. That's why they were suppressing the vote. It wasn't enough of them. They needed to suppress the Black vote because it wasn't enough of them to get their candidate in, which was a white man. That's why they were killing Black men for voting. That's why they were telling people, bombing people's houses, because it wasn't enough of them. The biggest misconception is the South was full of white folks. That's a lie. Do not believe the movies. They were not here. It wasn't a lot of them. But they trying to gain this political power.
Schools, why is it not really marked in particular ways in our community? Or are there efforts to do so?
I think a reason is because this history is not consistent with the image that Atlanta wants to project as a progressive city, a city too busy to hate.
Of course.
Fortunately, and Autumn, you can talk about the efforts of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights.
Yes. So we have a Truth and Transformation Initiative, which I am a program coordinator with. And so we want to focus on telling truths to transform the future. And we would love for you to come and meet our team and learn more about our Truth and Transformation Initiative.
Hey.
I want to introduce you all to Mo Hobson. He is on a journey to learn about the 1906 Atlanta Massacre.
Please. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I understand what the National Center for Civil and Human Rights is doing in the community, but I would like to know what Truth and Transformation is doing in the community from the ground up.
So a lot of the work that we do.
That one looked like an African. I could be wrong.
Is around telling the truth. We focus on history in Atlanta, history that people don't know about, like 1906, and the ways in which we can engage our community or keep our communities engaged. There's a lot of work in the community that's happened around 1906 that has happened. And part of our work is uplifting that work, uplifting those stories and finding a way to push it forward. I really hope engaging people in the community, engaging descendants will shine a light on all the many people who were impacted and bring their voice back to the forefront.
I'm looking for hidden histories. You know, what are some of the things that you would suggest for me?
Well, I definitely think you could use our truth-telling model. And it's something that we preach by and we teach on. So the first thing is figure out what history is hidden. What is the omission that exists? And next will be to understand, why is it hidden? Why is the omission there? Is it intentional? By who? And then the next phase would be to insert the hidden history into the modern day era. How could this connect with people today? Where does it still show up today? And then the last step is to give it to the community. What's happening in the community around this issue? And what are ways in which we could galvanize our community, our families around this issue? And using that model, we're able to move the issue forward or bring it back to the light.
Well, thank you so much for this. I will certainly use your truth-telling model in my quest, in my journey to understand what it is that we're doing with the Atlanta Race Massacre, because I feel like we've just scratching the surface. There's so much more that I need to learn and uncover. So thank you so much.
Please do, and let's stay connected.
All right, sounds good. Pleasure to meet you.
I think it's safe to say that I've already completed the first step of the truth-telling model. The Atlanta Race Massacre was a planned effort by white power structures to politically disempower Black Atlantans and impede future social progress. This was done under the guise of a race riot sparked by alleged Black criminality. But there's still so many more parts of the story to uncover. And there's no better way to understand history other than immersing yourself in the actual places where it unfolded. That's why I'm going on a walking tour. I am hitting up some of the key locations in downtown Atlanta impacted by the massacre. While researching, I discovered that the late historian and Georgia State professor Cliff Kuhn was known for his monthly 1906 race riot walking tours. And
don't you notice they always don't you notice they always right there? They are infatuated with Black America. Clears, and it makes sense. You know why? They're new. They're a new species. I would be infatuated with us too. Remember, just think about it. If you're a new species and you look around this earth and see all these Black folks, but there's an exceptional group of them, I'd probably study us too. But I'm so tired of looking up and seeing these damn pale bastards. I am so tired. I am so tired. I'm over it, bro. Every time you turn around, it's one of them right there, acting like they know more about us than us. And that's another thing. Why do we even listen to their history? They don't know more than us. They ain't even as old as us. How the hell are they going to tell us what happened a million years ago and they wasn't even existing? How did we let them start telling us our history? I don't understand. These motherfuckers ain't 6,000 years old, but they telling us what happened 100,000 years old or years ago? Come on, man. We got to start being honest now. We got to start thinking about this stuff.
Previously recorded a version before his passing. Let's let his voice guide the way as we dive into this tour.
Right, we start right down at 5 Points. It was the heart of Atlanta, and it was where the riot began. All throughout the downtown area for really over 4 hours, if you can imagine it, you had a pitched battle. Thousands of white men and hundreds of black men and women with pistols, knives, guns, axe handles, anything people could get their hands on.
My next stop is Decatur Street. Decatur Street was a major target for assaults and attacks during the massacre.
Historically, what was there were a series of bars and taverns, saloons. They were hubs for Black working class and white working class to interact and engage. And so in order to put a divide, the white business elite began to criminalize any activities that took place in those saloons. And of course, Black folk were at the other end of that criminalization, demonization, displacement, and disenfranchising.
After visiting Decatur Street, I made my way to 66 Peachtree Street, which was the site of the Crystal Palace, one of the luxury barbershops owned by Alonzo Herndon, a wealthy and elite Black man that survived the 1906 massacre.
Herndon's barbershop, fanciest barbershop in the region, the symbol of Black affluence during this time, at a time when lots of white men, frankly, wanted to put the Black man back in, quote, his place.
Barbershops were...
See, this is the thing. This is not just a regular barbershop. This is an elite barbershop. Remember, these are exceptional Negroes in Atlanta, and they ain't the only group around this time. We got Mount Bayou with exceptional Negroes. We got exceptional Negroes in New Orleans. We got exceptional Negroes all over America. But strategically, what's happening is some clear woman is getting accosted according to them around these areas, and then they go in and tear down the shops and the businesses and the homes. It's about taking the wealth, y'all. It's about taking everything you have and making you a slave to it, taking it all. When they took this barbershop through this doggone riot, them Black men never was able to rebuild like that. And even if he went and bought new property, you got to keep in mind, land taxes and all this stuff is evolving. So he might not even be under the same grandfather clause that he was under for this. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But we had hospitals, schools, libraries. We had all of our own stuff. Don't let them tell you we wasn't nothing but no slave. That's the most dangerous thing that you've been told. They weren't afraid of you being wealthy. You were already wealthy. They weren't afraid of you doing better. You were already doing better. Now, I'm not saying everybody was doing better. It's some niggas that was doing bad. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is the collective of us were not locked in chains. It was actually quite the opposite. And that's why we've gone through all the things we've gone through all these years. Why these white folks keep their foot on our neck. They afraid of this happening again. You see? They scared of this happening again because that automatically puts them the underclass. All right?
Among the many Black businesses attacked and destroyed during the massacre. In fact, a barber and lame boot Black named Henry Welch was shot and killed. The mob dragged their bodies along with another victim to the base of the Henry Grady statue, which stands at the intersection of Marietta Street and Forsyth Street.
And so the fact that bodies were taken to the Grady statue means that they saw Henry Grady as a proponent of the white supremacy that was being demonstrated during the Atlanta Race Massacre.
They love their heroes.
I can't imagine witnessing such horror at the young age of 13. But this was the case with a young Walter White. He and his father witnessed many Blacks get attacked and lynched by the white mob.
On the corner of Marietta and Forsyth, the mob tried to enter the post office during the riot. One of the letter carriers was a man named White, whose son, Walter White, experienced something of an epiphany that night. For Walter White, who was blonde-haired and blue-eyed and who could pass for white and sometimes in his later life did pass for white, This was the pivotal moment of his life. This was when he kind of realized that he was a Negro, that he dedicated himself to working for improvement for the Black race.
I ended my walking tour on Peachtree Street. It's where the Westin Peachtree Plaza currently stands. However, it was once the site of the Georgia governor's mansion. Governor Joseph Terrell was home during the massacre, but did not respond till midnight after many lives had already been lost. He claimed he was asleep and did not hear the cries, screams, and gunshots that were just a few blocks away. Governor Joseph Terrell called state militia at approximately 12:20 a.m. on Sunday morning, September 23rd. Although the crowd of...
Can I say this really quickly too? I don't mean to cut this thing off because I got to give commentary anyway. Also, during this time, they're covering up a lot of Indian history. Now, I'm going to tell you why this matters. The governor's mansion allegedly was raided during the massacre, and he allegedly, coincidentally, he wasn't home. After the riots, they moved the governor's mansion all together. Now, why is this important? This is what I know because I've been paying attention and looking around and kind of researching a bit on the land here in Georgia, especially Atlanta. I'll say from Atlanta all the way through damn near Fort Valley. I know that area, okay? And what I've seen is strategically they've replaced or moved certain things and rewrote and repackaged certain things because, see, unlike New York, where it was huge Indian territory, now you don't see nothing, at least I didn't see anything remnants or any remnants of any Indians in New York as far as the names of the streets, the neighborhoods, and things like that. But when you come back to the South, it's the Appalachian River, it's the Cahokia this, it's the Mahu this. It's all of these are Indian things because this was all Indian territory. That's why every time you get on the interstate in the South, when you look at one of them bridges, pay attention to the mile markers. It'll say the Cahokia River or the Machapatucha this or and these are all indigenous Indian names because this was all indigenous Indian territories. Now, why is this important? They moving certain things around in Atlanta to compromise and to to accommodate the new history that they're going to teach you. Remember, we're no longer Indians. We're now Negroes. So now they've already given our identity to a group of people with a dot in their head across a continent. And then they gave our other part of our identity to a group of people who are Asianic that we call $5. This is all happening at the same time. They are extracting our history from who we are, the knowledge of who we are. So a lot of things are being moved. And people may say, well, I would still remember that this building was there. Yeah, you would, but your son would never know it existed if you never told him. Does that make sense? All right, let's get back into it.
Just finally dispersed due to rainfall around 2 a.m., they continued to spread terror in other Black communities around the city for the next 2 days. It's sobering to know that the thriving businesses and lives that once occupied this area of the city were either destroyed or displaced due to the violence of 1906. And yet, even with being displaced, those who resisted and survived demonstrated a resiliency that would ultimately posture Atlanta to be a beacon.
Y'all notice every time they show you a white person from the past or a Black person from the past, they be white passing. These supposed to be Black people. These supposed to be the Black people of the past. Now, I'm Black, and I'm looking in the camera at me. And I'm pretty positive in Atlanta, the majority of the Black people look just like me. But every time you hear about these mysterious people who did well in spite of, they always look like this. Y'all haven't caught on to that? Because they're psyops. One day, we're going to get into the biracial in its portion or the portion that it played in the extraction of the wealth in American history. One day we're going to get into it, just not today.
And survived demonstrated a resiliency that would ultimately posture Atlanta to be a beacon of civil rights. I imagine that was a form of justice for those 25 confirmed victims and those still unknown. But telling their story and shining a light on their humanity is even more justifying. What do we know about their lives and how they died? Were there other victims not reported? To learn more about the lives of the victims, I'm heading over to Southview Cemetery to have a conversation with Ann Hill Bond.
Hello.
Hey, Maurice, how are you?
Fantastic.
Nice to meet you.
It's good to see you.
Absolutely. Welcome to Southview.
I hear that Southview is a very prominent cemetery.
She definitely a teller. This is not a Black American woman. Ann Hill, is that her name? This is not a Black American woman. This is not a Black American woman. Mind you, these are the people giving us the history. This, I don't know where this woman come from. She's a beautiful lady. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm telling you is, that is not a Black American woman. But they always in charge of our history. I told y'all the enemy ain't always white.
For Black folk in the city of Atlanta.
Absolutely. It's known as the African American City of the Dead, and it represents the influence of African Americans around the country. We have everybody here that was anybody since the late 1800s up until modern day with John Lewis.
Tell me about the work that you're doing.
I am the Fulton County Remembrance Coalition community chair. We're in partnership with EJI to commemorate the 36 lynching victims here in Fulton County. And amongst the 36, 25 of them are from the 1906 Atlanta Race Massacre. And a lot of them are buried here. Some that we will visit today, and then some people that survived the massacre that went on to be prominent leaders in Atlanta.
Well, listen, I look forward to learning a lot from you.
Yay, I look forward to teaching.
All right, let's go for it. Where are you taking me now?
I'm taking you to one of the victims of the 1906 Atlanta Race Massacre. His name was Frank Smith.
Well, what do we know about Frank Smith?
Well, we know that he was a messenger for Western Union, and we also know that he died on the Forsyth Bridge. There was said to be 10,000 white men that, came into downtown in that Forsyth 5 Points area, and their message or their charge for that night was to kill the Negroes. When you see a mob essentially coming towards you to lynch you, so many of them jumped, and Frank Smith was one of them that was documented as jumping.
At the end of the day, it was a lynching.
I'm not about to let her do it. Man, we was going to war with them people, even in the 60s, even all the way up to Black August. That's why we're in Black August right now. This is a bunch of bullshit. We went to war with them white folks. I ain't about to let her do it. And I get it. She repeating whatever she was taught. That is a lie. A lot of the times when they beat us in war, they had to go get reinforcements. A lot of the times they went and got portions of the military and the National Guard. That we wasn't just letting them white folks whoop on us like that. That is a lie. That is a lie. That is a lie. They making it seem like we were just so terrified of these white folks coming through our towns. We just hid in the bushes like, oh, Mr. White Man, please don't get me. No, girl. No. No way. We were still in the midst of understanding guerrilla warfare. We fought back. That's why people on their side died too. Girl.
The lynching. We have another person from 1906, but he wasn't a victim, Luther Price, who is just up the hill here.
Okay.
You want to go see him?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. We are at the gravesite of Luther Judson Price and his wife, Minnie, were prominent residents of Brownsville. He was actually the first African-American postmaster in the city of Atlanta. Even though Brownsville was a predominantly African-American suburb or subtown or sub-community, he served both.
Once again, here go the racially ambiguous Black man. Yeah, it ain't never a nappy-headed, dark-skinned nigga. It's always some racially ambiguous, quote-unquote, Black man. Okay.
African American and white people, because he was in charge of the mail. The urban legend has it that he was the one that armed Brownsville with the weapons to defend themselves on the fourth night of the massacre. But we get to that part of history where we're like, well, how did he get so many firearms at a time when African Americans were not supposed to have any firearms? But he was also very fair-skinned. He was also of the creme de la creme of the African Americans in Atlanta at the time. And so they...
Let me give you the tea, girl. See, y'all think that everybody with one drop is black and they use that to their advantage. They get these white folks in our communities that come in and say they got one drop. We accept them as black and we think that they're one of us. And we take them in, we party with them, we eat with them, we invite them to our families, we vote them into our offices. We let them run our schools. We let them run all this stuff. And we thinking these people are one of us because they got our best interests at heart and they doing onesie-twosie things that helps to benefit us. But the whole time they are op. They're op. It's not a coincidence that all these towns had these racially ambiguous black men that were the only ones to succeed and be extremely popular and extremely well. It's a psyop, y'all. We've been played. We've been played. That one drop rule, that's another thing that whooped us in our ass. We started to believe that all a person have to do is say that they have a parent that have one drop of nigga in them. And we really started going around saying, oh, they black. And they use that to their advantage. They put a lot of spies under that racially ambiguous term that we wanted to give everybody, which was black. Okay? I'm telling you now.
Said that once the word got out that this was happening to African Americans south and north of the city, people, the Pullmans, actually played a major role. They said that African Americans started putting any weaponry that they had into coffins and sending them on the railroad. And because he was the postmaster, he had access to getting those off the railroads and into the hands of the citizens that need them to defend themselves against the mob.
Tell me about Brownsville, though. Put it in full.
Absolutely.
Put it in the crosshairs.
I love Brownsville. Brownsville was the epicenter of political growth and economic growth and education. We had Clark College and Clark University at the time and Gammon Theological. Brownsville is a representative of resilience. And its resilience shows up in the third night when the mob was essentially ascending on Brownsville, on this Black Mecca, this Black epicenter of leadership, of Black thought, of Black excellence. Brownsville showed resilience by arming themselves, by defending their property, by defending their family. They got together and that collision happened on the corner of Jonesboro and McDonough. Brownsville.
So see, she's telling you, we fought back. They armed themselves. They fought back. She literally, see, it's the contradictory in the whole entire documentary. At one point, we just got our ass kicked and we got killed. But on the other point, we had guns and we fought back. We would never lay down and just let them white folks do what they want to us.
Where it ended, because African Americans said not today, not now, not ever, right? And Officer Hurd was killed. And in the killing of Officer Hurd, 256 Black men from Brownsville was rounded up and taken downtown to face charges for this one police officer's murder. And out of the 256, Alex Walker is the one that was convicted. Alex Walker was a Brownsville resident as well. There's several other graves that mark the time of 1906 that lived through it, but also the ones that were tragically killed, like Annie Shepherd. She's buried in the unmarked section of the non-perpetual care that is located a few feet away from here, but is covered by trees and debris. And so that is where a lot more 1906 Atlanta race massacre victims are said to be buried. During the massacre, people were just dropping off bodies.
So even though they're unmarked.
You picked up on that, huh, Lola? She never say we. She never say we, and she never say us. And even when she say African Americans, she uses it in the reference of them and not of us.
Do you think that there are any records, any primary sources that will give us some kind of insight on who's buried here?
Miss Winnie, the director here, they kept amazing records. So they have a beautiful book up front that shows the records of who is actually buried back here.
So this is September of 1906.
There you go. Ann Hill Bond is a Jamaican-born, Ghana-raised journalist with the deep Southern Black roots who enjoys the influence of Atlanta. There you go. There you go. And ain't nothing wrong with her being from Jamaica. I just don't understand why she's in charge of Black American history. I just don't. I understand why, because they want it in the hands of everybody but us. That's why we can't play our own leaders in our movies. That's why we can't play none of our own nothing. That they put it in other people's hands on purpose. But the point I'm making is you have to, if you have discernment, this is what discernment is about. This is what grounding is about. This is what about tapping in, because you start to see this stuff. It pops out on you like freaking like popcorn. It pops out on you. These are the people in charge of teaching you our history. She's not teaching us about Jamaican history. She's not teaching us about Ghanaian history. She's in America teaching Black Americans about Atlanta Black American history. Make this make sense. This infuriates me. Because I can't go to Jamaica and teach the Jamaicans about Jamaican history. I can't go to Ghana and teach the Ghanaians or wherever she's from, and teach them about their history. They would tell me to kick rocks, as they should. That would be the smart thing for them to do, to tell me, girl, you don't know what the hell you talking about. That's what a smart group of people will do. But when we are under the blindness of color and race, and we don't understand that we're different, we look at her and think that she has our best interests at heart. She's just as much of an enemy as that clear man. She ain't no different. Why? Because she got melanin? Because she got braids? She's doing the exact same work that clear man is doing. She has no business telling Black Americans about any Black American history. Go to school and learn about Jamaican history. Go to school and learn about Ghanaian history and teach that. Keep your lips and your ashy ankles off of Black American history. But again, I can't even be mad at her. She is working for a system that produces systematic oppression for a group of people that most of the time relies on racism, but does not automatically have anything to do with it. It's typically about a certain group of people they need to keep their foot on their necks with. That's it. That's it. But it makes sense. But I smelt it when she came on the screen. I said, that's not a Black American woman. Now the woman standing next to her is. This woman is, probably. But she definitely not giving me Black American.
Yep. And the massacre started on the 22nd.
Right. And so this is the date, I believe, of burial.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And there's Annie Shepherd. She's one of the victims of 1906.
And is this the age right here?
The age as it was reported by the family at that time.
You see 55, you see 18, 17. There's a vast range.
Because
of
Annie
age.
Shepherd is listed as 15.
Mm-hmm. So what we understand as the 11 unknown are possibly here. This amplifies their own personhood. It's not hard for me to believe that the vast range of people listed in the burial book just may be some of the 11 unknown victims of the massacre, because the massacre was an indiscriminate killing spree on Black people. The 14 known victims also reflect an array of all walks of life. Their ages range from 15 to 70, a carpenter, grocery store owner, Civil War veteran, everyday people who were criminalized and brutally murdered. The aftermath of the massacre makes me think of the third step of the truth and transformation truth-telling model. How is the omitted truth that we discovered relevant in present day? Well, the economic and social landscape of the Atlanta we know and love today was shaped by the 1906 massacre.
Listen.
A great deal of Black wealth was diminished in Atlanta due to the massacre. Some historians, including myself, argue that the destruction of Black...
A lot of graves have been moved. They're not in the original spot. That's how I know she doesn't know what she's talking about. Oh, wow. Now you teaching me, Gina. So they moved graves at the graveyard? That's crazy. You teaching me something. Now that I didn't know. But it makes sense. Remember, they're moving a lot of stuff around. They're covering up a lot of history. They are moving a lot of stuff around because they got to cover up a lot of history. They got to retell you new lies, and they can't have proof of the old truth. So they're moving a lot of stuff and they're covering up a lot of history. So that makes sense. And by law, they're not supposed to excavate them graves because grave sites, especially of indigenous people, are sacred on this land. And yes, even though they may be called Black American today, they were indigenous people. They are sacred land. I know my family have a whole graveyard. A whole graveyard. Huge graveyard. And yes, in Mississippi, the back of our graveyard have a whole bunch of people that are unlisted without tombstones. According to my family, they say that was people that the people was just throwing back there. But either way, these are indigenous people. It's just about status. If you say you black, then, you know. But I know my family graveyard in in Mississippi, my family graveyard, it is a historical site and can't be touched. But when they take you out your identity, they get to do whatever they want.
Businesses and the mass exodus of middle-class Black families after the massacre may have a direct connection to federal policies that led to Atlanta's present-day economic disparities. The following year, in 1907, the newly elected Governor Hoke Smith swiftly fulfilled his campaign promise to disempower the Black vote. He did so by signing a constitutional amendment that would impose a literacy test as a requirement for voting. That amendment disenfranchised the Black vote for the next 50 years. Due to newly implemented...
And let me say this. It's not that we were dumb or stupid, because they call it a literacy test. We weren't dumb or stupid. Around this time also, they're implementing what, ladies and gentlemen? The school system. Rockefeller and them said we need workers because we about to make these plants. We need a bunch of sheep and a bunch of workers. So we need people who gonna do what the hell we tell them to do. Now we're implementing the school system. So if you were an adult in 1906, you ain't got no education. Hell, if you was adult in 1966, you probably ain't had no education because it wasn't anything culturally what we were doing. So when they implement this literacy test, it doesn't mean that we stupid. Hell, we build in America. It just means we're not a part of your institutions. That was a way that they were able to use to keep us from voting. That's all. But we ain't dumb. We just don't go to your schools.
Segregation laws. Black Atlantans were forced out of the central business district in downtown Atlanta. However, the newly migrated Black businesses and middle-class families regrouped into the Sweet Auburn neighborhood. Sweet Auburn continued to grow in success, becoming a beacon of wealth, leadership, and civil rights in Atlanta. Additionally, the massacre sparked the life and legacy of Walter White, who, after witnessing the massacre, went on to dedicate his life to investigating lynching as the chief secretary of the NAACP. Today, I'm meeting with Rose Palmer, the niece of the late Walter White. I wanted to learn more about how that experience inspired him to bring change and justice.
Of course, he was a part of the NAACP. Of course. This is a racially ambiguous Black man who looked super white. Of course.
In his lifetime.
Do you think that the race massacre pushed your Uncle Walter into full-scale civil rights?
Yes. 13 years old.
I guess she Black too, huh? I guess she Black too? Because, in 2025, all she have to do is go on Twitter or Facebook and say that I'm Black, and people going to be like, she is Black, Voodoo. That lady is Black. She look just like my auntie. I got an auntie look just like her. She Black. That's all they got to do is come on here and tell you they Black. Because in 2025, it don't matter about what we looking at. It's about what they say. This is a clear woman who's the niece of a clear man who they lied and told you was Black. If she was in New Orleans, she'll be winning, running circles, because all she got to do is say Creole. Them niggas get to losing their mind. They get to going scatterbrain. They think Creole, they don't even know what Creole mean at this point.
Oh, it's a very impressionable age. But on that Saturday, it was September 22nd, 1906, Uncle Walter wanted to go and see what the excitement was all about. He got in the car, and when they reached Peachtree, he saw the little bootblack from the Herndon barber shop, probably checking out for the evening, and the mob beat him, massacred him, and left him sitting in a pool of blood. I think Uncle Walter saw 5 or 6 other killings at that evening, and apparently his father was trying to get away from Peachtree and back down the the back way, and they found a cook trying to outrun the mob, and they scooped her up in their truck and then turned off of Peach Street. And he said that this was the eye opener for him to realize that what it was to be a Negro, and that he never wanted to be a part of a race that hated people. If he had a choice, which being fair, he did, he could have gone off into the white race. He chose to stay and fight for the rights of people.
Do you have any pictures that we can see of your family?
Let me ask you this. Be honest. This is Jim Crow South. You're a racially ambiguous person, and you could pass for white. I'm not saying nobody's gonna go black, but what we can all agree on is most people ain't gonna tell them white folks they nigga, especially if I get to lie and say I'm white. But I always hear these stories of these quote unquote racially ambiguous black people who just chose to be black amongst the worst times to be black. I don't believe this. None of this makes sense. So your uncle seen niggas get their head knocked off in the middle of the street, and he went down there and chose to be a nigga? I don't believe that. I don't believe it. Now I get it. She on here saying he chose to stay and fight. Girl, bye. Your uncle was paid. Shout out to him, but he was paid. He was a paid op. Girl, bye. Girl.
Oh, yes, I have pictures here in the book.
Can you show us?
Family. Watch all these white folks.
Considering his complexion, was he able, I'm sure that there were always questions around whether or not you all were black or if he was passing. How was he able to use his platform as a fair-skinned black man to investigate?
That was a white man. That was not a fair-skinned black man. I seen a white woman on TikTok say that last year, talking about we're just lighter skinned. No, you white, pale, white and pale. That lady and her uncle is white and pale. They are not light-skinned. They are not pale-skinned. They white and white. We not gonna let them, this nigga here, he a sellout, bought and paid for. I don't give a damn what this members only club looking ass nigga say. That is a white woman. Her uncle was a white man, and they come off a white loin, a line of clears from here to Timbuktu. I'm not gonna let them do it. They all white. Every single one of them. She's not black. Her uncle ain't black. Her granddaddy ain't black. Her mama ain't black. Ain't Ann Reed, none of them folks black. They all white. Clear as day, okay?
To do the NAACP work.
Well, he is described as having led a double life with NAACP because he was able to infiltrate the communities where there were lynchings and find out who did the crime and go back and publish it in the Crisis magazine and bring it to the attention of congressmen and presidents. He investigated, I think, about 41 lynchings during his lifetime and about 12 race riots. When he became...
How many of them got arrested or went to jail or got hung?
Head of the NAACP, he was so popular and so well known at that time that it was more difficult to go undercover.
These people are so diabolical. They would play like, oh, I'm just trying to bring awareness to all the blacks being lynched, and we're going to publish their names because this is horrible. This is how diabolical this group of people are. Whole time, they don't give a fuck about who got lynched, nor about the people who lynched them. It's just a way from them to quietly boast that they got away with killing another nigga. It's given to me, your uncle probably was going to do this research so he can publish it out in the paper under the guise of, oh my God, this is horrible. But really, between him and his comrades, look, we got us one. It's a new nigga. Let's put out, remember, the Clears publish all their heroes. That's why they got statues all over the world. The Clears love their heroes. They adore them. They reverence them. They praise them. They worship them. So it wouldn't surprise me if these Clears were dual-hatted playing nigga on the weekend so they can get the tea and go back by the white folks. Because she's sitting on here talking about he exposed 41 people who did lynchings, but how many of them went to jail? If they ain't going to jail, nigga, stop exposing them. What we need to know who they is for if they ain't gonna get caught and go to jail. I feel in some deep, dark, sinister way, them white folks needed a way to brag about it. And showing that shit in the newspaper, saying we know this person did it, is a way to say, nanny boo boo, what the you gonna do? That's what it's given to me. Now I could be wrong, but that's what it's given.
Yeah.
Wow. Mr. White on Washington picket line, 1938.
This is when he was on the cover of Time magazine because he was becoming well known for his work in the investigation of lynchings. The NAACP exists today really because of Walter White. He lived and breathed that organization for 40 years. I think there were only 26 chapters in 1918, and when he died, there were 500 chapters.
This man wasn't even black passing. He wasn't even black passing, let alone white. Come on now. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. What we doing? Come on, man. You want to know the truth? Them boot-licking niggas sitting on either side of this white man sitting in the middle here, they are all selling out us. All them NAACP niggas sold us out. All them niggas surrounding this white man, supporting the lying facade that he's somehow black or have some sort of black in him, they all are in on it. They are all in on it. Treason is a thing. They are all in on it. This is a pure lily white man. They even described him as blonde hair, blue eyes. Who in the mother pluck saw black out of this? There's no, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. He do look like Al Sharpton, don't he?
When he died, there were 500 chapters.
So now I guess the story of Black Americans in Atlanta rests on the face of a white boy, huh? They always got to attach themselves to our story. So I guess the history of the Atlanta Race Massacre rests on the face of a white boy. That's white American, his story for you. They always got to put their name and their face on it. But it makes sense. They came with nothing. So they got to leave here with something, right? Every story we got to have a white face on it. Every single, we can't have no story that don't have a white face on it. Even when they look us dead in the face and tell us what we looking at ain't what we looking at, which is a white man. You better talk. Algorithm overhaul says white face, African labels, tether told. There you go. That sums up Black American history. That literally sums up Black American history in America in 2025. White face, African labels, and tether told. That literally sums up American history today. It's always going to have a white face. It's always going to have an African label on it. Oh, this came from Africa. The reason they doing that because they used to do that in Africa. And it's always going to be a tether telling the story. Girl, you better preach. You just spoke a word just now. It's unfortunate, but it's true. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Bree, thank you for the super chat. Says, being the historian in my family, no Africans, and we're in South Carolina, almost every city, lots of Geechee. It was all alive. Listen, I know for a fact it wasn't no Africans back there. Now, I know the history gonna say that they had a couple of Africans they dropped off. Girl, bye. Girl, I know what they say, but the Geechee ain't got no Africa on it. Do you hear me? I know it. Thank you. Never Burrows. Thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate you, y'all. I'm about to get up off of here. Thank y'all for pulling up to Educational Friday. This was lit. The Atlanta Massacre. I got the Akmogi or Amohu. I can't remember. It's another riot I wanted to share with y'all. We'll do it another week. But shout out to us and welcome to Educational Friday. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. You sent me an email, Walter White parents. Gotcha. Thank you, Bronze Beauty. But y'all make sure y'all like the video, subscribe to the channel. And I gotta jump up off of here, child. I'll catch y'all on the next one. We will be live tomorrow at the Dollhouse. Peace.
Can you hear me now? Oh, let's go! It's your boy Big Chew, the voice of the beat. You know what I want? Blaze up! Come on, Blaze up!
It's a beat for me.
Wow, 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 wow. For your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we live. For your boy. Also for your boy. Mix it for your boy. Drop it for your, lift it up.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.